Hello, my name is 환산스님, and this is Sun Meditation in English. So for today's program, I will begin the first half in the chair position for seated meditation. So for those viewers who are going to be using a chair, please select one that is of the proper height so that your feet will rest comfortably on the floor with your knees and ankles roughly at right angles. Once again, the chair should be stable, the seat should be hard, and there should be no wheels attached to the bottom. Sit with your back erect, don't lean back against the back of the chair. And from this point on, everything else is exactly the same as the traditional seated meditation posture. Next, we will enter into breathing. We'll do preparation breathing. Once again, in preparation breathing, we will inhale through our nose, completely fill our chest, hold our breath until it becomes mildly uncomfortable, and then release completely and thoroughly through our mouths. Okay, and as we do this, especially on the out-breath, imagine that all of your stress and worry and distracting thoughts, all of the toxins and accumulated waste products in our bodies and in our minds come rushing out with our out-breath, so that with each breath we become cleaner, clearer, calmer, and more deeply rooted within ourselves. So why don't we begin? So breathe in. Hold, and then breathe out. Once again, breathe in. Hold, and then breathe out. Especially when we're upset about something, we want to do this preparation breathing until our bodies and minds find a point of center again and become calm and clear again. And now we engage abdominal breathing, the main breathing form of our meditation. From here, let's engage the hwadu, the question that is the focus of our meditation. So what we'll do is we'll inhale, pause, and then as we exhale, in conjunction with our out-breath, we will ask in our minds, 이목고. That's Y-I-M-W-O-T-G-O, and that is Korean for what is this? What is this that directs my body? What is this that generates the thoughts in my mind? When I feel an emotion or a physical sensation, what is it within me that experiences that? When I hear the call of my name, what is it within me that instantly recognizes my own name? So we will be doing that with our breathing. Once again, inhale, hold, and together out loud, 이목고. The most important thing in asking this question, in raising this hwadu, is the state of doubt that it's supposed to produce. The question, the words in and of themselves have no significance. This is not a formula that's to be mindlessly repeated. It's a trigger to create within our consciousness the state of doubt. This is, the state of doubt can be compared to a childlike sense of wonder and mystery at the question of our own existence, at the question of the true nature of reality and of the universe. This is a natural question that exists within our minds that perhaps we've set aside in the course of growing up and being socialized, going to school and getting a job and doing all the things that we need to do. Maybe we've pushed this question aside, but it still lives within us. On this program, I've taken pains to try to show that the principles of meditation align nicely with what we've learned in science. There is no conflict between what scientists have found and what scientists declare and how meditation operates. It's all of the principles of meditation enhance both our physical and mental health. And there's lots of evidence for the benefits and power of meditation. But at the core of it, when we engage in this spiritual question, we are also engaging the true spirit of science. So whether it's science or spirituality or religion, it doesn't really matter. At the core of it, we need to bring to it once again, this childlike sense of wonder and mystery and openness to new possibilities. If we can do that, when we ask ourselves this question, the doubt naturally arises. It's in this spirit, I believe, that Jeongang Snim, Sun Master Jeongang, the teacher of my own teacher, Sun Master Songdam, once said, when you ask what this thing is, what is this, imoko? When you ask what that thing is, don't put names on it. Do not look at that thing and call it mind or Buddha. It is the place where there is no birth and death. Think of how powerful and mysterious that statement is. When we hear something like that, doubt naturally arises about the nature and purpose of our own existence. We take this doubt, use our breathing and posture to magnify it, maintain it, and expand it in the course of meditation until finally it fills the universe and erupts in the event of spiritual awakening. It is in this spirit that I'll ask you to continue to perform meditation for the rest of this program. Now, in the last week, I've actually gotten a certain kind of theme has arisen in the questions that have come through our viewers. A lot of questions have been asked about following one's dream. How do we know whether it's a genuine dream or not? These are some of the questions that have come up. How can I tell the difference between a genuine, heartfelt aspiration and an idle fantasy? And in the course of struggling to achieve this dream, how do I know whether I should let go or whether it's too early to quit? And how can I cope with these dreams if they don't turn out? Or how do I cope with the consequences of the dreams when I do attain them and they don't seem to be what I expected them to be? And what is the value really in the end for spiritual practitioners in formulating a dream? So for today's topic of contemplation and meditation, we will consider the meaning and importance of these dreams, these aspirations, these visions of our own future, of ourselves, of what we want our lives to be. So first of all, I would like to talk about the significance of dreams from a Buddhist perspective. From a strictly Buddhist perspective, the reason why we must dream and imagine is because we're not enlightened, because we cannot see directly the nature of reality, the nature of life, our own nature. And so we have to make plans and imagine scenarios and create dreams. And these dreams and plans are sort of a systematic way, really, of guessing how things might turn out, guessing what we might be able to do with our lives. It's actually a process of trial and error that we sort of systematize and maybe rationalize in the course of living. And I'm sure, as most of us know, plans almost never go according to plan. To paraphrase sort of an old joke, if you want to make the Buddha laugh, tell her your plans. Nonetheless, though, we can't give up planning inasmuch as we're not enlightened. So the reality is that we have to focus on planning. It's not just because we need to figure out what to do and how to do it. It also has to do with our own motivation. A close friend of mine from college, who is now a respected neuroscientist, he studies the brain and its links, the links between the physiology of the brain and nervous system and our psychology. And he was, many years ago, he was studying the physiological and psychological basis of human motivation and trying to understand where it comes from and how it works. And he shared with me a kind of breakthrough insight that he had at the time. I don't know if he stayed with it, but his insight has always stayed with me. He said that he was sort of up, thinking about all these issues in his research, and at a certain moment, he had an inspired thought, and the thought was, there can be no motivation without imagination. If we cannot visualize in concrete terms what we want to do or be, if we cannot understand in some narrative form, what we're supposed to do, why we're doing it, and what meaning it has for us, it's very hard to get excited about it. It's very hard to develop any kind of stable, motivating energy to pursue it. And I think this is a psychological truth that has been well known by all religious traditions in the world. In Buddhist lore, there's a story that's told of a monkey who's living in a forest at the time of the Buddha. And the monkey's just kind of hanging out, eating bananas and doing its thing. And one day, one of the Buddha's monastic disciples wanders into its sort of area of the forest. So the monkey very closely observes this new stranger who's sort of intruding on him. And this Buddhist monk proceeds over time to just meditate day after day, night after night under various trees. And the monkey's just kind of watching him, wondering what he's doing. And without really knowing, perhaps, or being aware of it, the monkey begins to develop a certain curiosity, which then turns into a sort of a sense of wonder and respect. And so eventually the monkey starts to sit next to the monk in the meditation posture, not really knowing what it's doing. And so day after day, the monkey is meditating alongside the monk. And what happens, according to the story, is that because of this, because of the image of meditation, the concrete image of a person in pursuit of enlightenment, this image is planted in the monkey's mind. And in the next life, the monkey is reborn as a human being, ordains as a Buddhist monastic, and achieves enlightenment. But it all begins with an image. So this is the power of visualization. We need something concrete because, probably from the Buddhist perspective, we're not enlightened. Now, one of the difficulties of this, as I mentioned earlier, is that sometimes, even when we achieve our aspirations, our plans, our dreams, the results can be quite unexpected. It's not what we expected. Like we study in high school, thinking we have to go to college. We get to college, it's not what we thought it would be. Then we graduate from college and get a job thinking that this will be our dream job. Again, it's not what we thought it would be. We meet someone and think we're going to fall in love, and then we have to deal with the realities of relationships. And then you get married, and then you have to deal with the so in each moment, at the moment that we achieve our dreams and plans, it turns out to be something quite different. And so we wonder then how are we to navigate in plan after plan, dream after dream, after these elusive, invisible, abstract goals like happiness or success or a meaningful life. And in that regard, I would like to share actually a remarkable metaphor that I once encountered in a book. And that is that it's explained that airplanes, when traveling very, very far from one country to another, crossing oceans, that the pilot can't see the destination point because it's too far, and because the destination point often lies over the horizon, beyond the curvature of the earth. So they have a computerized navigation system, and within that navigation system is something, I believe, that's called an inertial guidance system. And this system is designed to get the plane to within 1,000 yards or meters of the runway of the destination point within 5 minutes of the estimated arrival time. And the way this system works, is that every time the plane flies off course, an alarm goes off. And so then the plane adjusts again. And when it adjusts and over-adjusts, then an alarm goes off again. So the plane is zigzagging toward its destination point. And the amazing thing is that 90% of the time the plane is in flight, it is pointed in the wrong direction, and yet it gets there. And human beings also behave in much the same fashion. We seem to also have an inertial guidance system. Maybe it's our ability to learn from past experience, maybe it's our ability to imagine future experience, or maybe it's some deep-seated wisdom within us that guides us in spite of all the apparent chaos of life. So we don't have to worry so much that plans don't go according to plans, and plans don't always yield the results that we expected. In this regard, I would like to share a simple visualization exercise that I've actually used myself. And that is is to visualize what you want to be or who you want to be, say 3 years from now or 10 years from now. So if you imagine 3 years from now you want to be doing this or whatever, then you imagine, well then at 2 years from now, what do I need to be? Where do I need to be to achieve that in 3 years? And when you understand where you are at the 2-year mark, then you think, well then 1 year from now, what do I have to be doing so I can reach the 2-year mark? And when you know that, then you know what I have to be doing right now to be there in 1 year, so then I can be there in 2 years, and then I can finally get there in 3 years. It's a simple exercise, but it works back from your ultimate goal to where you are standing now and tells you what you should be doing right now in this moment, here and now. Now, one of the questions that our viewers came up with is that, well, let's say that I'm building, I'm putting together a dream or an aspiration or trying to sort of, get a concrete vision of where I should be going. And how can I tell whether this is a genuine, heartfelt passion or calling, or whether it's just some idle fantasy? And this is actually a very, very difficult question. And once again, as I always do on this program, I will first recommend that you meditate, because it clears your mind. Don't meditate on the question, is this what I should do? Because that will just cause you to agonize. Meditate as we always do, with traditional posture, whether in the chair or on a meditation mat, using the abdominal breathing, using the Imoko Hwadu. Let the meditation clarify your mind and stabilize it. And what you'll find, and this, all meditators have experienced this, anyone who's had some serious meditation experience, the answer to the question comes up on its own. It just bubbles up from somewhere deep within the mind. We already know the answer, we just have to meditate to release it. And one of the questions that I found useful in trying to determine the difference between real plans and idle fantasies is this something I want to become, or is this something that I want to do? For example, if I'm thinking of writing a novel, do I want to become a writer, or do I love writing and have something to write? If I want to be a musician, do I love playing music, or do I want to be a musician? Usually when you want to be something, it's just an image in your mind, and it often is caught up in aspects of our pride and our vanity and our ego and our desire for recognition, our desire for identity. Whereas if you have a real love of doing something, that tends to be coming from somewhere, a deeper place from within us. So that's a very simple kind of question that I've often used on a personal level and that I can recommend. But really, in the end, I think it is in meditation that we face ourselves most clearly. Now, another question, a painful one that comes up is that the truth is that for many of us, if not most of us, when we pursue our dreams, our aspirations, and if they're very grand ones, very, very heartfelt, really passionate dreams, often, so many times, the dreams don't come true, or they don't seem to be coming true. And then we have to agonize, do I continue with this? I've put in so much time and effort. Do I continue with this, or do I think of something new? How can I tell the difference between the mature resignation of letting go of something that doesn't fit with reality and simply quitting too early? How can I know the difference between those two things? And this is a very, very difficult moment in life for anyone who's had to go through this. And once again, I recommend that we take up meditation. And in addition to meditation, I think that it's important that we ask ourselves, especially within the clarity and inner stability that meditation produces, is this something that I still truly want? Or am I doing this out of habit? Is this still who I am? These are difficult questions to ask, but perhaps the most painful question to ask is, am I good at this? And we have to give very, very honest answers to these questions, and it can be very difficult. And if in the course of this painful, even excruciating self-questioning process, we find that it's time to give up this dream, what we have to understand, I believe, is that it's not just a dream that we're losing an identity. We're experiencing a kind of death. That not only have we put down the dream, we have put down who we once were. And therefore, we must now enter into a process of a kind of psychological or spiritual death and rebirth that can be very disorienting and very difficult to go through and can really shake our pride and self-esteem. And in that respect, I would like to say that from a Buddhist perspective, if we have chosen to let go of some long-cherished dream, then we must open ourselves completely to change and growth and evolution. And I really want to recommend that we don't look at this in terms of success and failure, but as of transition. And as I often use this word on this program, but I like to think of things in evolutionary terms, evolutionary transitions. Sometime long, long ago, in the primeval ocean, some fish began to develop the capacity to breathe air, maybe for short periods of time, and its fins began to change. And over this natural, for whatever environmental or genetic pressures created this, we may not know, but somehow its body changed. And one day it climbed up onto land, and the fish became an amphibian. And then the amphibian became land-dwelling creatures. This kind of evolutionary process happened, but there's no judgment to be made. It's not like the ocean is a better place to live, or the land is a better place to live, or it's gone higher, or it's gone lower. There has simply been change. Natural change according to the principles of nature, and this creature or this species was open to it. Likewise, when we put down our dreams, we need to be open to change. We need to let ourselves be reborn. And if that happens, just like that creature that once lived in the ocean, our identity will change, our personality will change, and just as that fish or that amphibian climbed out of the water and onto the land, our natural personality, our newly born heart will naturally seek the path that is right for it. We can trust in ourselves to do that. It's just that it may take some time, maybe several years, and in that sense we need to be patient, and once again meditation can help with that. Now during that period, when we are sort of going through this process of rebirth and reinvention of ourselves, I would like to recommend that instead of immediately trying to think of, well, what do I have to get to be happy? To think of it in our habitual acquisitive terms of, if I get this, if I do this, if I become this, I will be happy, I will be complete. Instead of thinking in those terms, I would like to recommend a very traditional Buddhist way of thinking, which is to be aware of the law of causality, the law of karma. Negative thoughts, speech, and actions produce negative consequences. Positive thoughts, speech, and actions cause positive consequences. So rather than trying to define ourselves and our lives in a period of disorientation, instead choose to think, speak, and act in ways that we know will produce positive consequences for our health, both psychologically and physically, and finally spiritually. Make concrete decisions that you know will enhance and energize you, rather than debilitate you further. So maybe you're stuck in a job that you don't really like. Maybe you're stuck in a marriage that you feel like you have to get out of. Maybe it's just a really bad situation that you're trying to work through. Even so, within those situations, we don't need to exacerbate it. We can still make choices so that avoid unnecessary conflict and unnecessary suffering. And within that temporary darkness in our lives, we can find some light, some illumination. So why don't we take a break here, and when we get back, we will continue to consider the value and importance of our dreams. Now, one of the questions that came up from one of our viewers is, what if I have such big problems, such overwhelming difficulties in my life that I just don't have the leeway to dream? I may have a very serious drug addiction. I may have a very, very serious health condition, either psychologically or physically. I may have a paralyzing, extremely threatening financial situation. It could be even worse than that. Maybe I have a life-threatening illness that completely confines me. Maybe I'm in prison. Now, as I think some longtime viewers of our program will know, I have been contacted by an individual who I'll call Mark, who teaches meditation to prisoners in the United States, and who recently has been using some videos of our program to teach these prisoners meditation. And so maybe we could be in that kind of situation. And in this respect, I would again like to address Mark and the volunteer workers who work with him, and especially the inmates, the prisoners, who have taken it upon themselves to improve themselves in such a difficult environment. How can we dream when we're living like that? And realistically, is this possible? What can we do in a situation where I'm in such a difficult situation, but still I want to elevate myself? I want to elevate the quality of my life and the quality of my mind and of my spiritual life. So what can I do there? Now, under those kind of circumstances, what I would like to point out is that often the problem itself, the difficulty itself, is the path to self-elevation and transcendence. When we're faced with an extraordinarily difficult challenge, as long as we don't back down or give up, the effort to meet that challenge, to overcome it, will force us to learn new ways of living, new ways of thinking, will force us to draw upon resources that we didn't even imagine that were there. It will force us to try to transcend the situation. And many people in history, even people in prison, have risen above their circumstances to do amazing things. And the most amazing thing about that is that it always begins by dealing with a personal problem. The thing that we need to understand is because we share this world and we live together, when I solve a problem for myself in my own life in a definitive way, I haven't just solved it for myself. I've solved it for everyone who has that problem. I am now a possible source of wisdom and inspiration for countless others. Not only those who live with me in the world in the present, but for those who may follow. Even someone on their deathbed can inspire by the way they face an impossible situation. And we know that many people have inspired people not by the way they lived, but by the way they died. Even when we look at the life of the Buddha, we see, according to traditional accounts, he was a prince destined to inherit the throne of his father and lead his nation. He had a wife and child, but he threw that all away. He threw away all of the resources and conditions that we typically imagine we need to achieve a dream. And he became, in that society, almost a beggar, living by begging for alms, living in the forest, deprived of conventional food, shelter, and clothing. And yet within those circumstances, because he followed his personal spiritual question to its end and found the solution, he didn't just save himself. He didn't just answer his own questions. He provided a wisdom that has lasted for literally 2,500 years and has touched the lives of people all around the world. This is how much our own problem can affect the lives of others. In more recent times, to give a more recent example, there's even my own teacher, Sun Master Songdam. When he began his career as a young monastic, he took a vow of silence that ultimately lasted for 10 years. He chose to turn his back on secular goals and ideals and follow what he thought would be an eternally solitary path of spiritual cultivation. But when he had his own spiritual awakening and could look at the world through the eyes of enlightened compassion, he began to speak again and share what he had learned, and he touched the lives of literally tens of thousands of people, both in Korea and abroad. Simply by solving his own personal problem, he was able to become an inspiration and a vision for so many others. And this is always available even to those of us who feel paralyzed and overwhelmed by the problems of their life. Our problem itself can be the means to self-transcendence, self-elevation, and to finding a position of honor and meaning in this tumultuous world. I would like to bring up an image that occurs, I think, in most religious traditions of the world, and that is of the blind prophet or the blind sage. And the idea is that someone who is born physically blind, in coping with their physical disease, finds a level of sight that is far more profound and far-reaching than what our physical eyesight could ever give. They see into the nature of reality even though their eyes can't really react to physical light. And in this way, the things that hold us down and limit us can force us to draw upon hidden powers that will enable us to jump higher and go farther than we ever imagined that we could. This is a very common image. There is also the idea of the sacred fool or the enlightened fool that is told of in almost all religious traditions. Someone who is so lacking in the problem-solving skills that we think are intelligence, that he or she can't do anything that they're told to do. Can't help clean, can't help cook, can't help run the spiritual community, looked down upon by everyone. But because of their naivete and their simplicity, when they engage in prayer or meditation, they gain an enlightenment that far transcends what we think of as intellect and intelligence. They gain wisdom and become, a source of inspiration and even salvation for those around them. So the things that challenge us and limit us can also be the means to our own liberation and transcendence. Now, especially, once again, for those prisoners who work with Layman Mark and the volunteers and any, I suppose, prisoner who may have the chance to see this, I would like to convey to you once again what Sun Master Songdam told me. He said, the best place to meditate and gain enlightenment is prison, literally prison. Now, I know that if any of you are watching this program and hear this, you may be thinking, well, why don't you come in here and see how easy it is to meditate and get enlightened? Why don't you see how good a place to meditate such a hostile and difficult environment can be? And I can totally understand that kind of thought would occur. And what I would like to say is, nonetheless, at the risk of possibly offending someone's sensibility or saying something that may seem ridiculous to those who live under such circumstances, I would like to point out that Sun Master Songdam himself was born during a period of an incredibly brutal occupation of Korea by Japan. And he practiced during wartime and underwent all the upheavals of modern Korean history, including dictatorship and all sorts of social chaos. So he is no stranger to difficult life circumstances, and yet he made this claim. So I would like you to consider very seriously that maybe there's something here to be learned. I'm not saying it will be easy, but it may be possible that within physical imprisonment, we may find a higher level of freedom. And what we need to understand too is that even if we were out of our prison, out of our hospital, out of our difficult circumstances, still we have to face the difficulty of growing old, getting sick, and ultimately having our physical bodies die. So what we think of as our imprisonment may actually be just a smaller shadow of a greater imprisonment that all of us have to face, no matter how free we may seem to be. So this is a recommendation that once again I would like to convey from Sun Master Songdam, and I would like to invite those, even though it's very, very difficult, maybe the path to freedom will be in the midst of that difficulty. It will be in the process of challenging that difficulty. And to Layman Mark and his volunteers and the prisoners, I wish you, with all my heart, all the luck and blessing that you need to get through what you're trying to get through. Now, moving on then, the next question that has come in is, what if I have no dreams at all? I don't know why. I look at life and it just seems empty and impermanent and meaningless, and I just can't feel anything. I know in my mind that the world is important and that people are important. I know that we need to put an end to disease and war and poverty and inequality and things like that. These things are important, and yet I can't feel it. I can't jump into it. I look at the religious traditions. I see the need for meditation and enlightenment, and yet I can't bring myself to just join a group or a community or some institution. My heart doesn't move, even though my mind recognizes the truth and validity of things. What can we do then? If I feel like I have no capacity to dream, even if I had the opportunity. And what I would like to say in that regard is, I think very many people feel this. Very many people who on the surface appear to be living passionately and satisfyingly and meaningfully in their jobs feel a kind of inner hollowness. a kind of feeling like they're just watching their life pass by from behind a glass window. And for those people in that kind of circumstance, I would like to say, don't try to believe in something against your own will, against your own better judgment, when what you see in the world is impermanence. Don't try to formulate a dream out of thin air. And instead, I will recommend that you directly enter into unremitting meditation practice. And meditation practice doesn't mean that you have to believe in Buddhism or that you have to have any kind of clear and articulate set of religious beliefs. Actually, quite the contrary, it's better to be empty of preconceived notions and opinions and assumptions and all sorts of fancy ideas about religion and enlightenment and spirituality. It's better not to have those ideas and just meditate and use your own good common sense. Is meditation good for you? Just try it. You don't have to try it for very long. You could even try it for about 5 minutes. Try it in a comfortable position like sitting in a chair. Do the breathing, do the hwadu practice, do imoko, and judge for yourself. Compare your state of consciousness and your physical condition immediately before and after meditation, and your experience itself will tell you whether this works or not. And if you continue with it, as you meditate, the clarifying power of meditation will cut through the darkness and numbness that surrounds our hearts. And eventually, if you're persistent, we will get to a point where we can discover within ourselves our inner light and our inner life, and once again, feel like we're alive again. We don't need pre-existing religious beliefs or doctrines to do this. It's just a matter of application. In Sun Buddhism, it is said that if you begin your religious practice by learning doctrine and theory and figuring everything out in advance and then enter into meditation, that is described as a trajectory or a course that begins from a place of beliefs and forms. Forms meaning images of what we're trying to pursue. You begin from a place of belief and form and go to a place where there is no belief and no form. We begin from a place where there is thought and language and form. We go to a place where there is no thought, no language, and no form. But the path that Sun Buddhism recommends is let's dispense with the place of words, forms, and images to begin with. Let's learn this meditation, this posture, this breathing, and this hwadu, enter into this state of doubt. And if we do that, we will begin at a place of no words, no thoughts, no forms, and move deeper and deeper into the realm of no thought, no words, and no form. And in Sun Buddhism, this is called, in Korean, 사교입선, which means throw away all teachings, all knowledge, and enter into sun meditation together. And through the pure experience of that, we can gain the kind of life and the kind of meaning that we want directly within our experience without the mediation of words and language and thought and so forth. So this is something that I would like to recommend for those of us who feel too numbed and too darkened to dream anymore. The famous psychologist Carl Jung, I believe, once said that the first half of life should be lived through self-cultivation, to obtain things, to obtain skills and knowledge, to obtain a place in society, a spouse, children, and so forth. But he said the second half of life should be lived giving away all of those things, letting go of it all. And that kind of teaching chimes well with Buddhism, because a life that is lived in service of an impermanent body and an impermanent personality is, from the Buddhist perspective, an exercise in futility. You are trying to uphold something that cannot be upheld forever. You are asking for anguish and pain and fear as this thing that you're trying to protect disintegrates in front of your eyes. But if you live in service of something higher, all living beings, the universe, the truth of enlightenment, then you don't have to go through all of that. And the way to do that is through giving in our external lives. In Buddhism, in Sun Buddhism, the recommendation is made that in our outer lives, we cultivate merit. Cultivating merit means producing good karma, and producing good karma means acting on the behalf of others, living with the attitude of giving, to give everything away. As much as we can, we give everything away. We give more than we receive. Give it all away, and that creates merit. And in our inner lives, it is taught that we cultivate wisdom through meditation. So this is the formula for a well-lived life within Sun Buddhism. Cultivate merit, meaning compassion and love, and cultivate wisdom. And this is something that all of us can do with or without dreams. So to sort of sum up, in the course of this program, I've tried to cover a wise way to live in the context of pursuing our dreams, a wise and compassionate way to live in the context of having to give up our dreams, or a way to live when you don't have the opportunity to dream, or a way to live when you don't feel that you have the inner capacity to dream. Whichever way you choose to live, whichever path is afforded to you, once again and always, what I want to recommend is you do it with meditation, and you do it in the direction of enlightenment. It is only when we meditate in the direction of enlightenment that we can keep adapting to all the change that is thrown at us. We can keep evolving, keep growing, and even into our old age. The final image that I would like to leave with you is this, and this is something that I've observed in my life in a monastic community. I have found, not only with very advanced spiritual practitioners like my teacher, Sun Master Songdam, but even with the elderly members of our layperson's meditation hall, that as spiritual practitioners age, their bodies may start to wear down, get wrinkled, and show all the signs of age, all the wear and tear. But there's an inner light that shines more and more brightly as time passes. And the metaphor that I would like to use, it's as if a heavy cloth were thrown over an eternally lit light bulb. And as time passes, as the wind blows, as rain falls, that heavy fabric, that heavy cloth is worn down more and more and more until it becomes translucent and transparent, and the inner light starts to shine forth. As our physical bodies age and weaken, as even our minds and intellects weaken, that actually is an opportunity for an inner spiritual light to show itself, to come shining forth. This is something that we can discover in the course of meditation, and it does not require that we have special life circumstances to enjoy it and to produce it. So this is the final thing that I would like to say. I think our time is up. So once again, I will thank our viewers at home for meditating with us today, and our studio audience members. And I will close again with the traditional Korean Buddhist greeting. May we all attain the Buddha. And now we will enter the closing session of meditation.